Peace and love. This is Travis Sellers. I'm a marriage and family therapy emerging doctor. Um, I wanted to share some thoughts about my journey and how it is to get into the practice of being a doctor in marriage and family therapy, and in hopes that in these conversations that I'll be able to extend some help and good thoughts and kind of help people reshape how they look at and approach their relationships. And that's my mission. And last time I was talking about love and you know the definition of love and how we need to start operating on the definition of love. So today I'm going to talk about, once you have that commitment or the definition of love, we want to be committed to a self growth model. Um, so again, once you have understanding of love and that definition, I want you to start operating on that love definition. If you're listening, start operating on that love definition. Spiritual growth and development. You got to start operating on that. And then once we're doing that, now we want to be committed. If you are trying to lose weight, or if you're trying to gain more muscle mass, or you're trying to go to the NBA, you have to be committed to the goal of accomplishing something of that magnitude. When you think about relationships, it's a I believe it's a lifelong goal that you have to continuously work on. Um, and one way that we can build skill sets or prepare for that, the steps you can, to take to get to that level, as we said, we have to love ourselves, and we have to be that growth model. And now we want to talk about that growth model, because I think, not think, but I'm aware now that to be committed, you have to be willing to look at the self. You have to be really committed to look at yourself and be able to assess where you are. And sometimes you may need someone else to help you assess where you are, to be able to start building um, to the success model, to that, self improvement, that self growth that you are looking for, that you need really, if you want to sustain productive, healthy marriages and relationships. When you are in relationships, I'm trying to imagine a young person when you're going into a relationship, or you think that now this person is attractive, um, or many people are attractive. It's fun. It's exciting. It's not something that you have to think about. It's just coming. It's just coming. It's just feelings that are rushing to your body in places that you like. Oh man, what is this feeling? So you're gonna have those feelings, because we have to understand that our bodies are driving us towards reproduction. We have to understand that we are human. Um, you're going to be driven towards that, and how that shows up in your, I guess, how it show up. That, I guess, it's like a good stress. Think of it like a stress that's pushing you, or motivating you to move into a direction. That's what stress does. And stress can be good and bad. Remember that. It's the distress that's the negative part of the stress. That's when it becomes negative, distress. But stress can be good, because you have to have stress to motivate you to do anything, really. So we have this distress. When you see, people that you're attracted to, and it's moving you to what you feel it in your gut, and then it's so moving that you can see a person, and you're going home, and you're thinking about this person every day. You can see him one time, and you're thinking about this person and the energy that it brings for days. And I know, I mean, we know. I mean, it's a natural thing. You can't stop it. And sometimes we have this conversation about like monogamy is not unnatural, polygamy is, all those things that. Only thing I know is this: like when I was a kid, I mean, this me personally, when I was a kid, when I was super attracted to any young lady, it was usually once I had that energy, it was focused on like a particular person. Now, I don't know how long, stress is not stress is temporary in some ways. Um, so it may have been temporary, but doesn't mean that I wasn't focused. I was focused, right? um, so that's the first, I think the first step of spiritual growth or to self growth is that knowledge of self that I am now emerging into this area where I'm attracted to other people sexually. And this is where I think parents or the people in your life who are your caregivers that are in your life can influence you. And they can influence you in so many different ways. And this is what I was talking about. This is what I became aware of is that these behavioral patterns of how people handle that stress, it's going to affect how you handle your stress. And some people even say, like, um, some of the scholars even say, even how you select your partners, the people that you have this strong draw to, are pretty much already mapped out in your brain because of who and how you were raised. Those images are in your brain, and you unconsciously are drawn to them in public spaces. You're drawn to them within um, the people who you find yourself around more often. It's become like you ever hear like when new people they uh, um, they find someone, they're like, oh man, it was so natural. I felt like it was a home. I felt like comforted. That's because whatever it was back in your past, whoever your caregivers were, your parents, you're getting used to whatever that behavior, whatever that connection was back then. This is what is bringing out in this person. You can see it in this person. You're putting that map onto that person, and they could have some qualities like that, but they could be different people. But it's just the way our brain works. Um, so yeah, it is natural. You feel it. Like no one can deny it. I mean, no one can deny you that you're not actually feeling these things because these things are actually happening to you at that moment. And it's like no one on earth can feel this. It's just me and this person that I'm connected with, right? And we have to understand that this is going to happen. I think if you go back and reflect, you want to, if you're a person who's young, you want to go back and see how your parents are, if they're together, if they're not together, and try to see what some of those patterns are in your family, and just try to be aware. And that's the one thing I wanted to say. You want to, if you are a young person, even if you're young, you're getting into it, you want to take yourself from unconscious movement to a conscious place of conscious decision making when it comes to your relationship development. The reason why I'm saying that is because you don't want to develop these patterns that you unconsciously get from like your past, or you're going to get it. But when you put some conscious effort into it, maybe you can mitigate some of the stuff that wasn't healthy, it wasn't productive, it wasn't self-love, and you begin to make those conscious decisions to develop these relationships in a different way. Now, I'm not going to place any judgment on like how that should be, but you want to be able to do it in a conscious way, and in an open and honest communication. That's the thing. Like whatever that is, you want to be open and honest about your communication because that's going to be good for you. Um, and if you are a person who's in a marriage, and you're trying to, like, gather things back in, get that love spark back in. You're trying to bring some conscious thought. Um, and I know that those conscious thoughts looks different, like in relationships, and you want to get that naturally. That was going to happen like back in the day. That's not, probably not never going to happen again. Being honest with you, because it's just the way the brain works. So you have to try to reproduce those ideas in your relationship. And this is to some of the men, not to place men and, place any blame on men, but, quite often we know that men can be creatures of habit, where we have these habits where we get into a cycle of them, and we can just keep doing it. We can just keep doing it, and it can be happy. It can be a happy place for us. But men, I would say that we have to be in the place of self-love and growth and development. So you're continuously developing on your relationship. It's almost like maintenance, like a house. You got to continuously cut the lawn. You want to trim it. You want to beautify it. Put flowers in different places. Um, it's the same thing, same principle, same with the women. That you got to understand that beautification, that care, that grass cutting motion that you do with your home. Um, you have to be able to extend that same type of effort towards your husband. And, because of the culture, we believe that in some way that is only, well, some men, I heard some men believe that they believe that women feel like, um, those maintenance, those care, that nurturing is only for women. Men don't need it, and I think that's a mistake. So, in your relationship, you want to be able to have that same approach. And when you're having those difficulties, you want to look at those patterns that you have. Now, I mean, now if you've been in a marriage, now you can look at your own patterns. You can trace your own patterns and see how they were affected by your family. And that's important because once you are able to identify like where those patterns, how those patterns are showing up, and how you participated in whatever behavioral pattern of of that anxiety that came in through the relationship, you want to be able to say, hey, oh, I can see where unconsciously this is where I'm naturally pushing towards this, I guess, a negative behavior, or this behavior that needs to, I can change and get better, work on it, because this is what I'm naturally doing. um, this is how I'm showing up. And that can be so complex, and in so many dynamics, because people come from two-parent households. Some people come from a household where they only have their father. Some come from households that only they have their mother. And some households come up when they have their grandmother and their mother. So it's very rarely that we have a situation where a person is bringing up themselves, and they're just came up and they raised themselves to the level where they are now, where they're able to meet other people and have love relationships. So you very rarely are able to do this by yourself. So this idea of I came into on my own, it's really not true at all. It's necessarily I mean, not necessarily. It's clear, um, biologically, statistically, you had to have someone to help you get to where you are. And that's going to be something that's, influenced by unconscious and some conscious decisions. Even when you're thinking your conscious decision, like for example, oh, my parents got divorced, I'm never going to get divorced. You unconsciously, you don't even know, just saying that I'm never getting a divorce, how that's going to show up and how that's going to affect you in your relationship, because you think it's all about never getting divorced. and not about behavior change and behavior modification or changing how you're showing up emotionally, how you're reacting emotionally to certain events. And that's another thing that you're going to find connected with your family is you're looking at. I just wanted to make sure that I say this. You're looking at the emotional systems, the patterns of anxiety. That's the key thing when you're looking at yourself and your growth. You're looking at how you're showing up. And that's why it's important that you focus on skill set. Like we talked about being empathetic and listening and things like that before. Um, because you don't know how the stress is going to come up. Like the stresses are pushing you to have this fight or flight response to stimuli that you may not even know that it's conscious. I mean, that it's unconscious, that it's just showing up. For example, um, if you don't like a partner who spends money in a certain way, like, one of your partner likes to buy luxury items, and you have fear that you don't know if it's fear, but it's showing up as fear that you don't want to spend money. You want to save every dime because if you don't want to go and be poor or taking out your house because you spend all your money. It's usually coming from some type of insecurity or the way that your caretakers, how they responded to money and to saving money and to spending money, how it showed up in their relationship and how it affected you. And now that you're trying to unconsciously, you're just releasing that stress onto someone else. And because you didn't deal with it, because you don't even know how, you had to deal with it. Right. So it's showing up because you don't know how, you didn't know that you had to deal with it because you're not taking the time. And we're talking about taking the steps. You're not taking the time to reflect on like how your family manage their stress, especially around these issues of it could be sexuality, how they formed families, how they spent money, um, whose house they how the house was purchased. This is a very big thing, um, and who's living in what house, who's taking care of who. All of these things you have to look at the behavior patterns and the responses to stress to that because it is a dynamic that we have to look at. Because if you have problems with money in your relationship, it's going to show up because you may even have preconceived ideas that say like you come from a family. It appears that your father is the breadwinner because that's like that's one of the major things that people talk about is being a breadwinner, right? Not that it's a team that's working on maintaining that because even if we look at going back to the days of where you had these large properties, there was like a team and not a team that was paid equitably. I mean, equally. It's just like it's not equitable at all that, we have these teams that were taking care of properties and we know that, right? So we know that one person is not doing everything. It takes a team to take care of a family. So if you have an idea that's showing up of who should take care of this, it's an unconscious decision because you're not having conscious thoughts and conversations about it. You're just following along. And if brings any distress, there's going to be some conflict, in which sometimes it does. And people talk about it all the time. So what you want to be able to do is to think about those things before you get married, and when you're and the thing is, it's even unconscious when you are dating. Because I remember one of my sons saying that it was almost understood that he's going to be, even though he's a high school student, that he's paying for dinners, he's paying for movies, all the money. He's using all his money, which is what he has no money. I mean, if we're going to keep it. you know, real about most high school students don't have money to spend on these items to take on dates for other high school students, but it's almost expected that, the young man to do that. And then this carries on into adulthood, into these relationships that men are supposed to spend all their money um, on the woman, and we're supposed to take care of everything financially. And if you look at the statistics, what's really happening, the facts of what's really happening, we see that that's not necessarily what's happening in real life, and that's why it causes stress, because it's a fantasy, and then when those fantasies become disruptive, you just have a lot of distress, and some people are distressed about their finances because they're not aware of the self, like what's really going on, and how it's going to really affect the relationship, and it comes out and it looks like distress, disappointment, because you had this fantasy that's not real. Because guess what? Your mother and father, if you had a mother and father, they worked together. They worked together. One was making more money one time, and then another, the mother was making more money at a time. Even someone passes away early, you get maybe not a large inheritance, but you get insurance money. So it may look like that the other person is taking care of all the finances, but didn't know that, maybe the mother, when she passed away, was able to give the family a large sum of money, where it looks like the father is making all this money, right? Or it has the appearance of that, which is not, not a bad thing. It just, sometimes people have different circumstances. And I think working as a team in a relationship is more important than and looking at the patterns of emotions, is working together and feeling supported is the most important thing. Um, and when you're looking at yourself, when you're showing up, um, and you're looking at how anxieties are centered around your sexuality, is another thing. Is how are you learning to be sexual in your current relationship? Now, for example, young people, when they're getting older, they're not getting older, once they're developing this idea that I think I talked about it just a little bit before, but it's so important. This is a behavioral pattern, and that are shaping us, when we are centered around. Really, it's really around. I think it's unfortunate, but it's centered around women being the ultimate prize, and I think it somehow it it affects how women approach their own pleasure when it comes to sexuality. So once you have that approach that I'm here for a guy, you're not looking for your sexual pleasure, then it's going to affect how you're dating. So you're selecting people based on what they're going to get. So now you're putting yourself like, I'm the prize. And if you're the prize, then you're just basically an object. You're not really a person who needs fulfillment, pleasure. Now you're just here for his pleasure, and you're doing things for this person's pleasure. First of all, we already know that's not a good thing, because why? That's not that's not growth and development. It's not love. It's not love for self, right? And if you look at the other side, if you're a type of person who is involved, a young man who is involved with a young lady who's like putting herself in a pedestal, in that position, like, oh yeah, this, I'm that person of, you know the gift to you, and you're buying into it, like, yeah, I gotta do all these things to get this person. Now you're looking at this person as, you're objectifying it, because this is the way the culture is. You're objectifying a woman as a prize, and that type of approach is going to affect, those patterns are going, because it's a type of stress in the beginning, but later on it turns into distress, because you can't maintain that. because women are not prizes. You get that? So women are not prizes. We are working together to accomplish a goal. And I hope everyone understands that. And when you have that, a young man comes in, he's doing all these things to get this prize. And then once the fulfillment, the pleasure has left, and it becomes, he's not doing anything for growth and development too, because he has a prize. So like people say, oh yeah, you give him the milk so he has to buy the cow. So that same idea, it kind of is, it's true in a sense, where because those behaviors, that behavior pattern is developing, because that is how we looking at it. We are looking at it like women are the prize. So, but if you don't have that look, that perspective, you're looking at it as people coming together, having, experiences together as a choice, then you already know. I mean, not already know, but then you can kind of mitigate some of those ideas of unbalanced thinking when it comes to approaches to sexuality, approaches in pleasure. Because, I mean, sometimes, and I think now that more women are thinking about it, but once you get married, like people, like women say this, and I've heard them saying it, that they don't have any purpose in marriage anymore. Why? It's because we have this unbalance of women being the prize. So now you're the prize, like you've been objectified. So what do you mean? Like, what pleasure are you thinking you're gonna get when you objectified yourself? I'm the prize. So you're not gonna get anything out of it with that mindset, because you came in thinking I'm the prize. So you're just here as a figure. And we don't want to have that type of perspective. That's why we have to have knowledge of self. We've got to look at these patterns that we have in our family, and so that we can have correct type of thinking in our relationships. I want to say correct type of thinking, healthier thinking when it comes to our relationships. So I think that once you, as you're a young person, you're coming in, you don't want to be the prize. You want to be coming to a person with understanding that we are in this, we're developing something together. If it's temporary, we understand that we developed a temporary thing together, and then we're able to get both pleasure from it, and then we can move on or do whatever. But if you're coming together to maybe plan to think about some longevity together, that's something we're coming together with. So yeah, start out saying, yeah, let's come together, and let's that's, I mean, if we want to go out on a date, let's make it, make it as free as possible, cheaper as possible. If a man is extending himself to be chauvinist, I mean, not chauvinist, but chivalrous. If he's being chivalrous by saying, okay, I'm going to, because that's me. I want to spend the money. I want to open the doors, because I think that's cool. I want to be the one who does all those things, because I just personally think it's cool. All right, so you can accept that, right? But then it's an exchange now. Oh, he opened up the door for me. Maybe I can like rub his back a certain way, like when he's sitting down or whatever. I mean, just have that exchange where it's, you're not just a prize just sitting there thinking that things are supposed to come to you, because eventually the unbalance is gonna come out. And so just wanted to wrap up by saying that those first two goals, those first two steps, and coming into the big league, is the first. We said the love thing. Now we're saying we have to look at self growth model. How are we going to get there? Where we came from first is the first step. How did we get to where we are? And I hope that it was clear that when you're a young person, it may seem like you're just having fun and you just popped up here and then it's just you just ready to go. But I mean, really, if you really want to make something out of it, before you run into, I guess, some mistakes or some challenges, just really like, oh man, I can see this person. Let me think about, like, why am I attracted to this guy? Why am I attracted to this woman? And what's driving me here? And if it's like, hey, if it's for, hey man, I'm attracted to you. I know I have no way of taking care of any situation. I just want to have sex in a safe way. Say it. Say that and be on that. Um, and but if you want something long in longevity, just know it's going to be hard. You got a lot of self growth to do. Um, and if you are married and you get into a situation where things are stale and you're trying to figure out like what is my growth model, like how can I grow, get better in this relationship, you got to look at your patterns. That's the first thing you got to do. Um, First, you got to love yourself and love the other person, and then start looking at like how do you get to this place? How did you get here? Look at your patterns. Look at how you are part of those patterns. And if you know you have some ideas about this and you want to share some thoughts, put them in the comments and like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. Okay. So until next time, I believe I'm going to talk about education. Further knowledge of self, education of the self. So peace.